Just a quick introduction on my background. I graduated from Penn State University with a degree in finance. After graduating college, I joined GE's financial management program, which is a 2-year rotational. And then I moved into GE's corporate audit staff, which is another 2-year program. This is really where I found my passion for business intelligence and data science. And after graduating that program, I joined GE Aviation, where I held two positions, one in supply chain finance as their financial planning and analytics leader. And then I joined supply chain operations and was supporting GE's assembly and test facilities as their data analytics manager. I joined Johnson Controls back in October of 2020, and I've been their business intelligence and data science manager ever since. So, Chris, if you want to move to the next slide, I'm just going to give a brief overview of how my group is currently integrated with the larger global products group that Chris was mentioning previously. So on the right-hand side, my strategic action area is the manager of tools, technology, and information. So I've split our group up into three verticals: enterprise applications, business intelligence, and data science. And in a nutshell, really what we look to do is serve our product business units, regions, and sites so that they can leverage the best business intelligence solutions out there. We enable them to build their own tools, but we want to share those best practices. And we're also building tools that enable them to have some automation and insights into their data at a larger scale. So the tools that we look at and we build are generally across all of global products. And then we're influencing and helping the business build tools within their own business units as well, because we don't have the bandwidth to serve all of their requests. There also is an element to our job of reporting up to executive leadership, building tools that will give a total global products view of where we may be succeeding, and then maybe some areas of risk that we may be encountering for business units that may be at risk of not hitting their targets. So we're kind of working up into executive leadership and down into the business. So on the next page, before we get into kind of deep dives of my individual business areas, I just want to talk to you about some of the challenges that I've seen, not just with the Johnson Controls, but throughout my career. I've had internships at other companies as well, and I've just seen a lot of common themes. And I wanted to summarize those into five main challenges. So the first is, and Jim touched on this a little bit earlier, is the amount of complexity that comes from having many different systems that you need to connect to get the big picture. So with that complexity, you'll have companies, especially large corporations, that acquire other businesses, and thus you're also acquiring their technology. You also have, over the last 20 years, many different investments in technology that you have to account for. And this kind of brings up that point of, wow, we may have, for a given project, to connect to 10, 20, 30 systems to be able to get the big picture. And that's kind of on a medium scale, right? I mean, there's projects where you have to connect to even more. So kind of blending all of that data together, creating a common data model takes a lot of time. And in large companies, even finding where that data is stored can be a challenge. And then once you get into that data, that kind of brings me to the second point of data quality. A lot of our transactional systems, ERPs and MRPs, they're still getting their data from humans, and humans are susceptible to error, right? So understanding where those errors may lie in those data sets becomes increasingly difficult with the more data that you have to connect to. So for us, that's been another challenge. And I think that's something that is just, a challenge across many major businesses today. Moving into the third point, this is something that is also a common theme with the amount of data that we have today in our business. There's a lot of demanding requirements. Everything seems to be due yesterday. And so for us to keep up with that and make sure that we're prioritizing projects effectively can be quite tricky. And then on top of that, when you get into actual requirements with your stakeholders, they may think they know what they want from a solution that we're building for them until they see it, and then it may change. So you have to be flexible and iterate. And we try to develop and bring in individuals into my organization that have a strong domain expertise, so that instead of having to be spoon-fed, hey, here's what's the solution that you want, we try to provide that to our users and say, this is what we recommend. because we understand the process challenges that you're facing. Here's how we'd solve them. So it kind of cuts down on the back and forth and all the meetings that have to happen, and we can provide that solution to them versus having to be spoon fed that solution from the stakeholders. Number four, just getting into, down into the details of how a business is structured, right? Finance may look at a different hierarchy of the business than supply chain, and it might be different in sales and quality. So trying to standardize that hierarchy involves many different stakeholders, and then ensuring that you're calculating your key product indicators the right way. So, for example, on-time delivery could be calculated differently from product business unit A to product business unit B, and making sure that it's standard across them is extremely important so that you're measuring your businesses equally, and you can really look at apples to apples comparisons across your portfolio. Last but not least, the skill gap, and Jim talked about this a little bit, earlier in his presentation, but I'm seeing two different areas where the skill gap is driving some complexity in the business. The first being that Excel simply cannot handle all the data that we're working through today. It's very error prone, it's tedious, and it's something that a large portion of our analysts and managers are comfortable with because that's kind of what they grew up on throughout their careers. But there's a lot of newer technologies that are coming out that allow us to work quicker and conduct more robust analysis. And there's that upskilling that needs to happen so that we can train our workforce to be more dynamic and to be more flexible and to move faster to keep up with our changing environment. Next, the second kind of complexity in the skill gap is we have a lot of great tools that are out there, but and that are providing advanced predictive machine learning and AI capabilities, but we may not necessarily have the skills in the business, with our analysts and managers that understand advanced statistical modeling, right? So how do you explain the output of a neural network or a Monte Carlo simulation to a demand planner, right, who may not have a strong statistical background? So those are some challenges that we're facing that we're currently working through today. So on the next slide, we can start diving into the different areas of my group. So the first one is enterprise application management. So on the right-hand side, when I talk about enterprise applications, I'm really talking about robust applications. And I gave some examples. We're not invested in all of these, but these are things that I've seen throughout my career that allow us to take all of our transactional system from our ERPs, our MRPs, and our CRMs, and do much more robust analysis around demand planning, inventory optimization. A lot of these solutions have an AI capability. And with that, there's a long integration process. So when I talk about enterprise applications, it's really those applications that sit on top of our transactional systems. They require an IT organization to implement, and you're typically partnering your IT organization with your domain experts. And these investments can be millions of dollars. They can take 3 to 5 years to get through. But ultimately, they're changing the way you're working in a big way. And so this person on my team really has to have a strong domain expertise, really be well-versed in project management to ensure that we're hitting our milestones for these integrations. And they're typically leveraging Excel and PowerPoint to communicate results to executive leadership and ensuring that our business domain experts are aligned with the expectations from IT. On the next page, this is where I really want to start to dig into the business intelligence and data science side of our group. And I put them on the same slide because at the end of the day, I see them converging just with all the different tools and technology that are coming out. So I'll start off with our business intelligence analysts. These analysts are really the supply chain domain experts that have a strong IT background. They understand business intelligence tools. They probably know how to code SQL to pull data from systems, but ultimately they're rapid prototyping our solutions, and outputting that information into a Tableau dashboard or a Power BI dashboard that can allow our business stakeholders to do some dynamic analysis, and use that for their reporting as opposed to having to make PowerPoint pages. So a lot of automation, reporting, more robust analytics from a descriptive standpoint, and really driving outcomes in the business through our data, and being able to support special project teams who may be working on a continuous improvement project at a site. Well, they can come to our team and we can help support them with data and analytics so that they know that they're working the right problems. And then on the right-hand side is the data scientist. And I really see them being more of the experts, in statistical analysis, artificial intelligence, and machine learning techniques. They probably know how to code R or Python, well-versed in business intelligence tools, and have strong database knowledge. And I want to keep, and this is something that we're starting to dive into, but I want to keep our data scientists focused on the advanced predictive and prescriptive analytics. And I want them to partner with our business intelligence, who are really the data experts that can get them the data that they need. The last thing I want is a data scientist to come in and have to go searching for data, spend all the time to prep and blend the information together. I want us to have a strong foundation of data that they can come in and start working on projects and really focusing on the modeling and the advanced analytic outcomes that can drive our business to the next level. I also can see data scientists working with business intelligence through some tools that I'm going to talk about on the next page, to bring our business intelligence analysts into the world of data science. So if you want to just flip to the next page, Chris, there's two emerging areas, and Jim kind of talked about these a little bit as well. First being self-service analytics, which has been around for quite some time, but the technology has really taken off over the past 5 to 7 years. And so the idea of both of these areas, self-service analytics and citizen data science, is to build up and upskill your domain experts out in the business, your supply chain analysts or managers, your financial managers who understand business process, but don't have the skill set of programming to supplement their work, right? So they're stuck in Excel. Well, there's tools, and we're not invested in all these, but these are tools that I've seen throughout my career that can allow them to do the work of a programmer, but not have to learn how to program. So the time it takes them to learn these tools might be a month versus, several months plus to learn Python or R. And that can be very intimidating if you've never worked in object-oriented programming before. And then a lot of these tools are taking this self-service concept, which is, if you think about it at a high level, drag and drop functionality that is kind of pre-packaging code into much more digestible tool sets. And they're expanding that into machine learning and advanced predictive analytics. So now you're upskilling your business domain experts to be able to conduct linear regressions or random forest models, and maybe they partner with the data scientist to ensure that they're properly understanding the models that they're putting together. And you're able, through these two types of tools, to cover more ground. You're not reliant on data scientists who are in a shortage right now, or data engineers to conduct your analysis and build your tools. We're enabling the people who understand the process to build the tools themselves and drive the outcomes, in their day-to-day work. So on to the next slide. I just wanted to give a high-level view.
God, I just wanted to interrupt a second and just support what you were just talking about with an example. We have a supply chain development person who joined our company last summer after she graduated from undergraduate school there in Wisconsin. And with just a few hours of training from Scott and working with Alteryx, she has put together in 1 month 3 different reports that previously were taking people hours to aggregate together. And now within seconds, these reports can be generated. And she did it all just with that simple little learning and with her own little tool set there that he provided the information on. So it's something really exciting to see the change happening.
Absolutely. Yeah, and kind of, I'll show you the process that she went through to conduct a lot of this analysis on the next page. So where I kind of split this into 2 phases. You have your systems implementation manager, who's going to be focused on your transactional systems that are feeding the enterprise applications, working with IT to get those enterprise application examples I gave before up and running, ensuring that there's strong adoption. But hopefully your business has those enterprise apps and your transactional systems being fed out into data lakes or data warehouses. And this is where your business intelligence and data science experts are going to sit. And our new hire that kind of went through this process in the gray, where she was taking information partially from a data lake. Maybe she also has to connect to some warehouses that haven't been integrated into the data lake yet. And then there's going to be a foundation of created data that's going to be brought in that may not reside in a transactional system. But at the end of the day, someone has to be able to prep and blend all this data together so that it can be output for analysis. So that can be done in self-service tools like Alteryx or Data Haiku, or it can be done in SQL, right? But that, some of these tools allow for, like I mentioned, you not to have to go through all that coding, which can be tedious and can be time consuming when it comes to debugging. But at the end of the day, SQL is definitely a method and a very popular one to pull data from your databases and aggregate it together. And then you can get into R and Python, which can also do a lot of that. But that's where your advanced BI analysts are going to be sitting, and ultimately your data scientists, who will then be doing some data science analysis through tools like RapidMiner and Databricks as examples. But ultimately, a lot of data prep, a lot of data blending is going to go into the day-to-day work of these individuals, who will then give some outputs into your business intelligence tools like Tableau or Power BI for the visualization. But maybe it's a quick and dirty analysis in Excel or PDF or PowerPoint that you need to output to, depending on who your stakeholders are. So the outputs from these tools are very flexible, and they're going to change based off of the type of work that you're going to be doing. But this is really how it all comes together. And you have to have people in your group that understand all of these different technologies so that you can be flexible in the methods that you use to pull that information. So I'm just going to finish off this presentation with kind of what is a business intelligence project look like? What is that process? And on the next slide, it's really going to be split into 4 different areas. So the first area is really around scoping out the process gap and the pain point, right? So this is where we try to get those hybrid individuals that understand the domain of business process, but also understand IT tools that'll work with the stakeholders in the process to say, okay, what's your problem? Understand the current process. So for example, let's say you have, a manual reporting issue where it takes, an individual 8 hours to report out their metric every month. One of the first things you'll do is understand their current process, where they're pulling their data from, and how they're blending it together. Typically, things are put together in Excel, so you'll have to dissect some Excel files. But once you get an idea of who the stakeholders are, what the systems are, you can start to move into a rapid prototyping phase. So this is where we'll leverage those self-service tools to go out, and maybe that data that was pulled into Excel is actually stored in a database. So we'll get a direct connection to the database and pull in that data. Maybe there's also going to be commentary and other types of forecasts that are not held in a system that will also join into our data set. And now we'll have a complete data set that's pulling automatically versus being downloaded into Excel through our self-service BI tools that can be output into a Power BI or Tableau dashboard, for instance. You'll go through probably several iterations to try and work with your stakeholders to say, is this how you want to view it? This would be our recommendation. And once that kind of levels out and they're ready to start using it in operational rhythms, that's when we hit the production phase. So now let's say this process that took 8 hours might take a minute to consolidate now, and you have a dynamic visualization that it's being output to that many different stakeholders can go to for their analysis. And let's say that's probably used in a monthly operating cadence, right? So now you're getting insights, you've saved time, you're getting productivity, and then maybe you'll need to add on some additional data sets throughout the process of the production phase. But once that tool starts to stabilize, you'll go into a maintenance and improve phase. Well, maybe you'll hand it off to a central IT team, or you'll schedule the refreshes to happen, and you'll update them as the business changes. So this is, kind of a high level view of the process that we try to go through as a business intelligence or data science expert. And yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to present today, and I'll kick it over to Scott for any questions.